welcome to Minister Rabbitte, and just a note on Minister Donnelly. I think, as was articulated by Deputy Cullinan, he has done an awful lot of work to bring this complex bill here, so I'm sure he's sorry to be missing out today, but I don't think it's lost on us that he has done an awful lot of work to get this long overdue bill before us. And it is a long bill, it's a complex bill, but it's not a bill that actually resolves everything. It's a foundational bill. It's a bill that's going to give regulatory certainty, or at least we hope regulatory certainty around this whole area. But I think it's the arrival of this bill today at second stage, I think there'd be an air of relief. Not that we've reached a finish line, far from it, but that this is an important moment that this AHR bill has finally reached the floor of the Dáil. I do believe now that there is a desire from the government and from this side of the House to move it through as expeditiously but as carefully as possible, because it will require, I think, and it will be subject to a number of amendments and suggested amendments, because we're not dealing with an area that is simple or straightforward, and the sheer length of this bill, I think, is testament to that. But we very much welcome this bill and this move towards finally regulating assisted human reproduction in Ireland. We have been laggards. I think that's a word that's used an awful lot in other areas, but in this area we've certainly been behind our European sisters and brothers in terms of regulating this area. There are people all over this country who've been waiting for this bill for many, many years. For many, it has come too late, and I think we need to recognise that. But there are those who will be hoping that we will be able to move it forward, and that in line with the model of care for infertility, which the government are pushing and are funding, and which will need to be scaled up dramatically, that we are on the cusp of a properly publicly funded, well-regulated model of fertility care in this country, which is, I think, is somewhere where the vast majority of us want us to be and need us to be. But the establishment of the AHRA is very welcome. That's the foundational, I think, element of this bill. I think it's the right approach. That we have this, and it's going to have an awful lot of complex issues in which it's going to have to adjudicate on, and it's going to have to decide on and provide certainty on. One area that this bill deals with is the area of posthumous AHR, and that's a very complex area. It's an area with maybe ethical and moral questions, but it's an area that there are people suffering from the lack of regulation of this right now, and anyone who's been going through assisted reproduction has been doing so without the regulation that this bill will provide, through private clinics, many of which operate different standing operating procedures, for want of a better phrase. So while the clinical care has been really good, it has been paid for and it's expensive and all the rest. The clinical care generally is very good, but there is different models of operating procedure versus different clinics. And when it comes to posthumous reproduction, people go for AHR for many different reasons. Some go because they themselves have life-limiting conditions, and they are looking to start a family before their health deteriorates. There are others who are in otherwise perfect health, need assistance with fertility. But then if a tragedy befalls them and one of the prospective parents passes unexpectedly, tragically, and all that's left in any physical form is this gamete or this embryo, which is now in a clinic. And because the clinics have different operating procedures, and because when you do go to a clinic and you're in good health and you don't have a life-limiting condition, your headspace isn't about what's going to happen if one of us loses our life. It's about creating life. So then when the tragedy occurs and when one parent, when one prospective parent is left, they're then subject to whatever, many small print and many forms they'll have signed, and the vagaries and the rules of that particular clinic. So this bill will need to have, and the AHR will need to make provision for those people who are dealing with that now. I also know there's a provision in the bill that, a surviving partner, let's say, will be unable to access posthumous AHR for a year. Now, I assume that's coming from, I think that's in the bill, I'm almost sure I read it today, is it the bill? Yeah, so I'm sure that's coming from a place of, not grief and having to deal with grief, but we're also dealing many times with people who feel, whose clocks are running down, and time, months, the month cycle, leads to a year cycle. Like, time is very, very important. So I think there needs to be a provision to deal with that, because a year at a certain stage in life is really, really important. So, again, not an easy answer, maybe not something that will be captured in legislation, but maybe something that could be captured in the practices of the Assisted Human Reproduction Regulatory Authority. And it's something that I would like to see be discussed further. But look, it's lost my place. But look, there's no doubt it's a huge positive step in the right direction, and delivering this framework and regulating for assisted reproductive care is beyond the necessity at this stage. And there's many different elements to it. We do want to work, as I said, towards a public model of assisted reproductive care. There's also other elements to it. There's workers' rights issue. Labour have a bill which was brought forward by our Shannon on the back of the great work of our Lord Mayor Alison Gilliland and the INTO in terms of leave for people who are going through infertility treatment and that. And that's, again, another piece that needs to be brought into this whole debate, a very important practical piece. We've talked about the costs. That will have to be met with a proper model of public care. But we will need strong workers' rights leave to ensure that people are able to take the time they need to get the treatment, to deal with the consequences of the treatment, be it positive, be it negative. But there is a bill there that does have all party support, and I think should be progressed. I think something this bill will do as well will help tackle what has been quite a stigmatised area over the years, that people have felt if they've had to go through assisted reproductive care route, that they have somehow felt that they have failed, or that they, that they think, and they've had to go through that journey in silence, sometimes from their close friends or from their family and all the rest. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I think we've seen over the last number of years an awful lot of people come out to share their fertility journeys, whatever that journey may be. And I think they should be applauded. And I think an awful lot of their work, which has been kind of soft in terms of maybe, it's not direct engagement with pre-leg scrutiny or anything, but it certainly has created the environment for which this bill has finally been brought to us. And I just want to acknowledge those individuals over the country who do go on social media, who do say to their social networks and said, if you have a question about this, ask me. And I know there's people in my life who've put their hands up and said, look, ask me about my fertility journey, our fertility journey, and I'll answer any questions you have. And that's not an easy thing to do. And I just think the people that do it have played a very important role in getting us here. And they're not necessarily part of groups, they're not part of that, but it is something that needs to be acknowledged. The bill does speak to domestic altruistic surrogacy, and that is again long overdue. But the international surrogacy has been put into the time-limited all-party committee, and that is good if it works and if it's progressed and isn't seen as something that's been kicked down the road. I don't think that's the case. That's not the sense I'm getting. I do think there's a desire to deal with this, and there's an energy to deal with this. And Ukraine is another example of why we need to deal with this. So to see that progress, we'll deal with the difficult issues. We'll hopefully find a way through them, because there is a reality on the ground that this is happening. And judgments can be made, and we need to say a rights-based approach to this. But at the end of the day, if I get a call from my childcare provider that my child needs Calpol because it's running a slight temperature, I can give it. But there are parents in this country right now who can't give that permission because they've had their child through surrogacy and through international surrogacy. And these are the practical problems. And who really loses out on that? It's the child. So, this is ready to go. But look, it's over 15 years since the publication of the report by the Commission on AHR in 2005, which called for new laws, and it's 5 years since the general scheme was first published in 2017. I've mentioned that we're way behind internationally and regulating space, unlike other EU countries, so that's why this is welcome. The current cost barriers to IVF and assisted reproductive therapies, this is where we really need to get to in this country. While this is a foundational regulatory bill, the real proof and the real success of this is if we are going to have an egalitarian, properly democratic public system that is not just open to people who have the means, who have the many thousands of euro that's required. And a lot of people who do, they don't necessarily have that money on tap. They do go, they have to get loans that have to be paid back with interest, and all the rest. So that's where we need to be. We know in the UK, the NHS funds IVF treatment. We've seen in recent years that it's become harder to access for couples. So it's important that our model of care that we do roll out is robust and is future-proofed. Part 6 of the bill covers the complex ethical area of pre-implementation genetic diagnosis and sex selection. This is an area of concern for many, and it must be closely regulated. It's important to differentiate first between pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, which is most commonly associated with cases where there's a known family history of a genetic mutation such as cystic fibrosis or Huntington's disease, and then the more broader case of pre-implantation genetic screening, which often presents other ethical issues due to age or parental concern. Embryos are checked for sporadic mutations or chromosomal abnormalities. We need to mark how important this area is for so many families, and a chance to address the great burden many families face where there is a known history or genetic risk of devastating inherited diseases such as cystic fibrosis, Huntington's or haemophilia or Fragile X disease, to ensure their children don't carry the condition, and where pre-implantation genetic diagnosis is deemed acceptable and applicable. Critical to the regulation of PGD, however, is ensuring there's a publicly funded option for IVF, as I've discussed, and funding for necessary screening. I would ask the Minister to confirm that the HSE will fund pre-implantation genetic screening for embryos where it is deemed ethically applicable, and that there will be a system in place to support families. Can the Minister also confirm what approach will be taken for families who decide to pursue the screening of their embryos where there isn't a known family history or specific genetic disease? For example, if they decide to screen for chromosomal abnormalities or sporadic genetic mutations where the age barrier may not apply. Again, important, difficult questions which we need to actually nail down. Human leukocyte antigen typing of embryos is provided for in the bill, so that the child's HLA matches that of a sick sibling, often for stem cell donations or treatment of specific genetic diseases or leukemia, and are often called saviour siblings. This will avoid the rejection of the stem cells in the sick child's immune system. This again is a very sensitive issue around concerns of the possible exploitation of the child, but the bill does provide very clear criteria. But as this is a constantly evolving area of medical practice, it should be kept under constant review. And I would urge the Minister to consider again specifying in the bill that the board of the AHRRA establish an ethics committee as recommended in the pre-led scrutiny, and that the resources are put in place for the funding of genetic services, including geneticists and genetic counsellors, and that the provision of PGD where it is deemed by the board to be necessary. Look, I'll finish up on that, but we do have the international commercial surrogacy issue, which is going to the Special Oireachtas Committee. Again, that has to go in tandem as much as possible, or at least follow on as quickly and expeditiously behind. We do have other related issues, as I mentioned, like the organisation of working time, reproductive health related leave bill, and all that, but we do need the model of infertility care to be properly funded and properly rolled out. If this bill works and we have a regulatory framework that is trusted and that is up to the acceptable international standards that we all strive, that we do have the public model of infertility care that will be open to all coming behind it, and that we will finally be able to catch up and provide the health care that we do need and that we have a responsibility to provide for all those people in our country who are looking to create life, to nurture life, to love life and to provide life. And I look forward to what the Minister says in summing up at this stage of the bill, and then seeing this bill progress through the subsequent stages. Thank you.